Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for coming in early this evening. We're gonna talk about the work in Romania, and it's to me it's very exciting, and I'm so glad Brent Forsyth is here, we've gone many times together to Romania, and Brent Lewis in the back there. Many times we've gone together to Romania. So I expect you guys to throw in anything that I'm missing on anything, because what I want to do tonight is talk about the work that's going on now. Yes, in the center of the report, but I also want to talk about where it started and some of the things that took place early on, and as a comparison to see where the work is now. And so I'll try to do that as we go. Again, goals to give you some history, about the work there in Eastern Europe and in Romania, and again, the work's going on now. Introduce you to these beloved brethren. You don't know a lot of these, but they're so much like you. They have children that they're raising. They have special needs children that they're raising, like so many, a few of us here. They love the Lord. They love to sing. They love to study and dig into the Word. But I want you to know some of them a little better, and I want you to ask you to pray. Pray for these different churches that are working there in Romania, and again, through, I guess, 30-some years now, they're continuing to grow. And again, I want to talk with you and think about this 30-year perspective. Brent, Buddy Payne, and I went 31 years ago this summer. In fact, July, Kim, today, July 7th or 8th, we went 31 years ago to Romania. A month later, Ben Payne came with his mom and dad. He was 14 at that time, Ben. and then January of '94, we were July and August of '93. Brent Forsyth and his wife Tamara came in '94. But there's been so much through the years that have been exciting and encouraging. But especially as Brent and I and Buddy went back these last 2 summers, May of last year, May of this year, we saw some greatly encouraging things. There's individuals, Christians, that are growing. You can see their growth. You can see them developing and able to do more. And then you can see the churches, the individual churches, there's growth. And there's numerical and spiritual growth. You can see it in the congregations. So through the years, we did probably the 3 years we were there, and the Paynes 2 years, the Forsyths almost 2 years. Bucharest and Constanța is where we did most of the work in the beginning, but later we had opportunities, and through the years since we've returned to the States, have opportunities more in the west also, in Craiova and Severin, towards the center of Romania there, and then Timișoara in the far west of the country. Timișoara is near the Hungary border there, and you can see the area. Moldova is kind of a buffer state here, but you got Ukraine all around there, just to the north and the northeast. And the Moldovans several were at the conferenza that we had there in the center of the country. And Sergei preaches up there. We'll talk more about him in a minute, but Sergei was telling us it was rough, especially in the beginning of the war there in Ukraine, and the things that they were seeing and dealing with. And some of the Romanian brothers, refugee Christians, came into Romania, and the church in Bucharest, the church in Constanța, helped them in those early part of the war there. But this plaque is in a wall of an apartment building in Timișoara. Timișoara is, again, the far west city there. It was where the revolution started. There was I'll show you here what this plaque says. It's Romanian and Hungarian underneath there. This is the apartment where the priest, he was an ex-Orthodox priest, and he put a sandwich board over his front and back. And this is what it said: Dumnezeu există. God is. And he started marching. God is. This is when the walls were falling in Eastern Europe and the countries were starting to experience freedom. Well, the dictator in Romania, Ceausescu, just cracked down. The Romanians told us those last 5 years were the worst. They were the worst of all the 50 communist rule there in Romania. But this plaque says right here, this apartment of this ex-Orthodox priest. He saw the Orthodox weren't right. He started marching, and 100 people followed him, and then 1,000 people followed him, and then 10,000 people followed him. And then as those numbers kept increasing, they were warned, don't go again to the square. They call it now Revolution Square. But Brent and others, we visited that. The Christians took us on a tour, and there were still bullet holes in the Orthodox church building where the Orthodox priests closed the doors and locked them when the people were trying to run from the bullets. But there were still, repaired bullet marks there on the bricks. But this is how it started. I want to show you this picture of a good brother that was baptized there in Constanța, and now he's preaching in California, Iota Coccioni. I grabbed this from one of his reports. This is a picture in Bucharest at the height of the revolution. You can't even see, you can't see like you could put another person in that piazza there. But Iota says here, he was in middle school and high school during these last 5 years of Ceausescu's reign. And he said it was really tough. But with the fall of that communist regime, it opened the door for the gospel. Can you imagine 50 years where you can't have a public assembly and open your Bibles together? And now they had that freedom. And it meant a lot. When we first got there, we would go down at a bus station. Several different lines met there, right in front of the university where there are a lot of young people, and would set up a table. Bible study in English, Bible study in Romanian. We'd put 2 signs out there, and we had a tablet, pens, and some spare Bibles. People would come up, give us their name, their address, their phone number. I want to study the Bible. They were so hungry. It was a unique time. Keenan went to Russia and Lithuania during that time. Keenan, it was a unique time in history for the gospel, and it was. I would say everybody who went was changed. It was an opportunity that doesn't come up that often. I mean, we get Bible studies now. We got to really work for them, but they came up to us. They signed up and they asked us to come. But that's what it was. That's what it was in the 93, 94. It's changed now. They've westernized. They've come in with all the different, westernization problems that come with our culture. But again, this guy here with the glasses on the left with the newspaper, you recognize him? And his mom and his dad there with black hair. And then Kimberly, and this is a 6'6" Caleb here. He was 11 months old. And this pretty lady, does anybody know who this is? That's one of our elders' mom. That's Grace Zonka. Grace came up to Kim and I said, look, you're going to Romania. She said, I can support myself. I've got properties that are leasing I've got Social Security. I won't be a burden. I want to help. I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll help with Caleb, I'll type. And man, she typed. She translated. We got Romanian translators to do it, and Grace typed it all with hotkeys for the Romanian special characters. She would hit the hotkeys, and she typed it all. We translated book after book of good fundamental materials into Romanian. And Grace was a great help to us. She was there 2 years as we started there. And again, opportunities. Brent and Buddy and I would go. The embassy called me. They had known I had played professional baseball, and they said, hey, Romania is starting their first national team. And so they said, can you come and help in any way? I said, well, when I have time on my, I'll come. So the first day I went, the guy's got a book. He's got a baseball book, and he's reading, and he's telling the guys, okay, do this. You know, I'm going. Anyway, we got them squared away, and they did pretty good as they caught on. But I mean, we had this is Buddy with the creation evolution the chart there of, you know, man, the ape to man, you know, and he's showing what they're teaching, and then he's showing what the Bible said about it. But we had, you know, Brent had opportunities, I had with this and many other opportunities. But again, times have changed. We've gone back through the years. You know, this is Kim pregnant with Rachel. Several years later, you know, after we had been back in the States, and these sweet ladies here on the right. Nicoletta is a mom of 3 daughters up in the congregation in Alexandria, Virginia, and Mihaela is in London, England, and has been worshiping there. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but the thing that makes me a little bit frustrated and sad is that some of the strongest Christians have moved to the States, you know, and they were so helpful and so able. But Yota's preaching in California. Again, these ladies are strong Christian ladies in their families in, you know, different places. From Constanza, who to Tennessee. Kazmin moved to Tennessee, and he's doing spot preaching whenever it's needed. Very active in the church still. But you know, there has been a lot of good, not just in Romania there, but in other places now, from the work that these Romanians have done. Marian and Gabi, this is probably one of the most important couples there in the past. Marian has preached over 20 years there in Bucharest. His daughter Roxy came to FC, married an American, and she's living in the Orlando area. And they have come from Bucharest, and they're living now in New Smyrna Beach, and they are Marian is preaching there at New Smyrna Beach. We used to support Charles, who worked there as a preacher at New Smyrna, and he's moved on from there, but Marian now is there working with the New Smyrna Beach congregation. But Gabby, his wife, was baptized, and I've seen a lot of ladies that love studying the Bible, but man, she is a ferocious Bible student, still to the day. You would give her a workbook, and she would have notes. About 1 week later, she'd have all the lessons done and notes all over that lesson book. And her Bible was just tattered and notes everywhere. Marian would find out when the Bible study was, and Gabby would say, oh, good, Marian's interested. And what it was, he wanted to know when the Bible study was so he could be playing soccer. He didn't want to be there. But eventually, Marian, he sprained his ankle real bad. He couldn't play soccer, and he started listening. And each week he got closer, from the kitchen to the living room, and then finally out on the back porch where we were studying. But man, again, what a team these two were for 20-some years there in Bucharest. And there's a lot of work that has come, a lot of good fruit that has come from their work there in Bucharest. We'll talk about some of that here as we go. We arrived on the plane. It was late. Our bags were not there. We had to do the bags, missing bag routine, and then we got here to this apartment that we were renting, and the two preachers' wives had a meal for us there at 11 o'clock at night, ready for it. And this is chorba there on the table. That is a delicious soup with borscht in it. It's like a vinegarish taste called borscht. And then sarmalis are stuffed cabbage, and mama liga is liquid cornbread kind of. But they had that ready for us. Again, here are the two young preachers that do most of the preaching. Bogdan in the green there with the baby in his arms, Bogdan Luta, and above him is Alex Otvosh, that is Marion and Gabby's son. And those two young men, they're in their, Bogdan's in his 30s, and Alex is right around 40, I guess. But they have, for years been active, but now they're leading. Also in Bucharest are these two, a wonderful couple with Doru and Valentina. We call her Vali. But he also is involved with the teaching there in Bucharest, and those three do most of the teaching, and have, again, the church is continuing to grow, and new Christians all the time. They meet here in the Fine Arts Center. You can, it's not, the location is not the best for public transportation, which we always had a wonderful place right near the American Embassy, near the metro exit. But this one is a little further away, but it's all they can afford right now. It's a nice place. It's got the PowerPoint and all set up for them, and they really do a good job of with the electronics. Simon and some of the younger guys here would be lost without them, but those guys are all sharp. They're all tech savvy and capable, and they're growing spiritually, which is the most important thing. They're all growing spiritually. Buddy stayed in Bucharest, and Brent and Kyle, Brent's son, and I went down to Constanța. Now let me give you a little history here. When we were there our first year, Wendell Watts on the left and Frank Jamerson on the right came to Romania. And in fact, the first year is the year that Jill Jamerson died, and Frank was only there a little over a week, and he had to come home. His daughter Jill passed away. But then Frank would come back next year, a year later. I think it was kind of therapeutic for him to come back at the same time of year when Jill passed away. And he spent another month there. And then the following year, Joyce came with him. And again, I think that was therapeutic for them. But Wendell and Frank started the work there in Constanța. They put out ads in the paper, they handed out on the street, and they started. There were 2 young men that were baptized that first month they were there. And so we would preach in Bucharest, we'd run to the train station, hop on the train, and it'd be about 3 hours to Constanța, and then we would worship Sunday evenings there with the church in Constanța. You recognize this young man on the left here with the tie. He's sitting right here. But the 3 of us worked together in Bucharest, and then when this Constanța opportunity opened up, Brent and Tamara moved from Bucharest down to Constanța, and they were there again about a year and a half and worked there. The church was growing. I would say, Brent, at the height of that congregation, there was 40-some Christians there, almost all young, not all young, but almost all of them were young people. And again, some of those now are in the States. So these three, Yota's preaching in California again. Nicoletta is in Alexandria, and is in Tennessee. So the church in Constanza had a lot of problems with, there was a mother that her daughter became a Christian and changed dramatically, and she didn't like that. She wouldn't run at night anymore in the the all night bars, and her dress changed, and she would go to service regularly. This mother really brought some persecution down. Her husband had a massive heart attack, passed away, but he was part of the Securitate, they called it. That was like the secret police in the communist regime. She had connections through her husband, even though he wasn't there anymore. He was gone. But they really brought some persecution on the church there in Constanza. And they were getting kicked out of every place they would try to rent. So our last 6 months, we moved from Bucharest. Brent and Tamara had already left. Kim and I, our last 6 months, moved to Constanza so we could have an apartment, and they wouldn't mess with Americans like they would with their own citizens. But with those last 6 months, we got to know and love the brethren there in Constanza. And here is a picture of Sul Hall and Kenita. They came our last month in Romania and were there with us. And a picture there with some of the brethren, and again, they love studying the Bible. And I think I had a black hair or two back then. Not many, but a few from that picture. That church, when we left, eventually James Hamilton moved there, and James was there how many years, Brent? Probably 10 or so. And the church grew and did well. They bought a building in the process, and eventually James had to come back to help his mother-in-law and others in their aged state. So the church, with the leadership gone, again, the strongest of the Christians there moved to the States, and that church dissolved eventually. Dissolved to where it wasn't meeting anymore for several years. These men today are the main teachers there, and I want to tell you a little bit about their background. Doru and John are two, and they're John's brother Illy. They were twin brothers. This is Illy's wife Laura. Those three men and some other men here that I'll show you in a minute grew up in an orphanage. James Hamilton baptized them out of the orphanage, and they made a pact, kind of. These men, all as young boys, they made a pact. When we get out, we're going to be a family. We're going to stick together. We're going to help each other. We're going to be a family. And they did that. They still are doing that. Most of those men. Eric, you probably remember some of the ones in Constanza there that we're talking about. But when we went back in 2012, James Hamilton, Brent, and I, we were looking to find some of the Christians that had fallen away. We didn't know where they were. These are the orphans here. Again, Doru and Jan and Illy, they were still there in Constanza, and James said, I think I know where we can find them. And so here's where we went, and James and Yota found them. They were living here in this broken down old railroad place. Again, this is 2012. Several, 5, 6 years after James had left, the church had dissolved. From this, then, Illy was baptized, Laura was baptized, the other men were Christians already. And that church, since this point, has begun to grow again and is actually thriving. They bought a building on their own with Romanian funds, their own funds, and they bought a building, they fixed it up. These men are industrious. They all, again, came from the orphanage, and they got jobs in Constanza in the ship repair business, where they used to go when they first started into the halls and weld, and it's a terrible job. But they took online classes, and they got their degrees or certifications in OSHA safety, and now they're all supervisors, inspectors of scaffolding, for this same shipbuilding business, and they're in demand all over the world. They're making great wages. But what they want, what their desire is to soon retire and be there constantly, because they have to travel a lot, and they try to coordinate their schedules so there's men in town all the time. But they're hoping soon to be able to just work in Romania only and not go out. But again, this is the church in Constanza. Several years ago, several years before COVID, Flory was baptized. Her husband didn't want much to do with the gospel at first, but now another Jan, or Johannuts, Jan has now become very active. And even after he was baptized, he wasn't, he didn't want to lead prayer, and he was shy. But now, every time we see him now, he's more involved, and he's wanting to help. And again, these churches in Bucharest and Constanza, the encouraging thing is the core of those churches is 30 and 40-year-olds, and they're starting families. It's good to see the youth there. Radu is from Bucharest. He volunteered to come and translate. Constanza has capable translators, but Radu is very good, and he volunteered to come. He went with us to Constanza, and he helped us. If you can see this picture, he has two computers there. One's mine and one's his. He's got headphones there. He's doing his job online. He's got a hotspot on the train. He's doing his job on the phone, on the computer, and he's translating our PowerPoints into Romanian. He's doing that as we're traveling on the train. We get off the train, we walk across the tracks through the station into the car, and he's still working. As we're walking, Radu's going like this, working as he goes. These guys are, I'm telling you, industrious, incredible, but they're using their talents and their abilities for the Lord. It is what is just great to see. And then, again, translating for us as we had some Bible studies there on Friday and Saturday. And then worship there at Constanza on Sunday. Following that, then, we took the train back to Bucharest for Sunday night. And then Monday, Kim and Tamara came in from the States. And we picked them up. And then on Tuesday, we traveled to Severin. Severin, again, is out in the center of the country. And Severin is a church that is, probably the most experienced Romanian preacher is there. This is the church building there in Severin. It's right on the main boulevard in town. Severin is a beautiful, small city. It's not a big city at all, but it's got size, and it's got a variety of just beautiful parks and areas there, and it's in the country, but yet it's a little city. Here is another Jan, Johannuts. Johannuts is Johnny. Jan is John, and Johannuts is Johnny. But Johannuts Corlan, again, is an experienced preacher, probably the most experienced preacher there in Romania. His lessons are really good, well thought out, and strong lessons. He has been a real key to the work in Western Romania. Nutsa is his wife. She's a great co-worker with him, and this is his son, Sorin, and his wife, Alexandra, and their 3 daughters. Sorin and Johannuts do most of the preaching there in Severin. but they also help in other churches. There's village churches around Severine, and again, this is in the center of the country. And what we did is they call it a confidenza there in Severine. And brethren came from Constanța, brethren came from Bucharest, brethren came from Timișoara in the west, and Moldovan brethren came in with Sergei from up north. And Peter came, Vandernini, he's preaching in Belgium. He came in with another Christian from Belgium. So as we were in Severine, all these other Christians came there. Mitika and his wife, I'm drawing a blank here, Mitka, they work and preach at a small village church called Izvor, the Spring, outside of Severine. And Mitika is Nutz's brother, the wife of Johnny Corlan. They are, that family has had great effect there in Western Romania. Their name is Stanculescu. And again, they have a special needs daughter there, Ileana, who is a really sweet young lady. Back in 2012, we had a similar conference there in Severine, where the Christians from all around the country came. And that year, Caleb, my son, and Taylor Leggett and Austin Paramore came over with us that time. You know, they kind of advertised to the brethren here at Temple Terrace, hey, these guys want to work, do yard work, do tree trimming, anything that you need, they'll help with, moving, furniture. And so the brethren hired them, and they did these jobs for different brethren here at Temple Terrace, and they raised their money to go, that spring break. They went on the spring break and came. Of course, the brethren made them probably the highest paid yard men in Florida. But they came, and it was so neat to see Bogdan, who's now preaching in Bucharest, and Alex, who's now preaching in Bucharest, and these guys. The first day, they were like this. They were sitting together, and they couldn't talk to each other, and they didn't know each other, and it was strange for everybody. And then they started going, cum se spune? How do you say? Cum se spune? And they would say, how do you say? And they would point to it. And so they started talking. And at the end of that week and a half, you should see, man, they were just laughing and they were good buddies from being together. But all those young men are faithful. All those young men are working in America and in Romania, in those individual congregations and helping the work of the Lord where they are, which is, again, so encouraging from a perspective of years. You see that. Again, this is a 2012 Confidenza. But again, this conference, these young men, the Americans were preaching, but the Romanian men who were volunteers preached also. The older men, without doubt, were going to preach, but some of these younger men stepped up. They wanted to do a lesson also. And we did a lesson in the morning, and then we would split. The ladies would go for a lesson, and the men in another lesson. In the morning, we'd have lunch, and then in the evening, we had 2 lessons each of those days during the Confidenza. This is Alex Otvash, again, the son of Marian. He presented a lesson that was just excellent. The theme was, we are lights in the world. In a crooked and perverse generation, Paul said there in Philippians 2. And Alex did a lesson. You could be preached at Temple Terrace or University without a blink. I mean, he did just an excellent job. And then I took this picture. This is the oldest fella that was there. He's a Christian. He had worshiped at institutional church, and he's been hearing the teaching of the church here in Severine, and he's seeing the differences. But he was there every night. 91 years old. He's leaning forward, and he's got his ear cupped so he can hear. And his name is Lucas from Craiova, about an hour from Severin, but he was there every night. And again, these young Romanian preachers presented lessons and used the PowerPoint and did an excellent job. Just Buddy and Brent and I kept talking. Last year we saw it, but this year even more. How encouraging it is to see the growth in the individual Christians. I want to try something here, Simon. If we can do this, I want you to hear a Romanian song that they're singing. Now, I want you to try to recognize the tune, though. It's an American tune. See if you recognize it. Let me know when you're ready, Simon. So what is the U.S. tune? In everlasting arms, right? And brats, that's what they're saying, in the arms of Jesus. So that's an English song Romanianized, or at least the lyrics Romanianized. Now, this, and they're doing more and more that this is a Romanian song. It's a beautiful song. Buddy always described this song as hauntingly beautiful. They sing, and I don't know my music, but it's something about a key. But maybe you'll know when I play it. But it is just beautiful. Jesus, what great grace that you have bestowed on us, that you've given to us. We praise you. We praise you. Your name, Jesus, we praise you. And, he's saying in that last verse, trust always. By your grace, we have overcome every difficulty. We keep singing, we keep sincere and confident. When the storms come, when the pains come, when the sky is only clouds, trust always in the Lord, trust. So the things are different. When you go there, you feel when you're first stepping off the plane and you look and everything's so different, but you're there about 2-3 months and you'll be walking to the tram stop or to the bus and you'll be thinking, this is home. It feels like home. I told Sam and Julie Peters when they were going to Romania, that's going to happen to you about the first or second month, after you get over the initial difference and everything. You'll be walking, somewhere busy and involved in the Lord's way, and you'll feel at home. Home is, in the Lord's work, is wherever you have opportunity to do it. That's where home is. And again, these opportunities that are here are, there are differences to those opportunities than we have here. But it's the same basic principle. Lost souls need to hear this message that you have, that we have, and we've got to help them to hear it. And they understand that. Kim hasn't been there for 22 or 3 years, I think. So she knows a lot, some of the brethren from before. This is Rodica Badetta. Kim knew her 30 years ago in Constanza, and so it was wonderful for her to see some of those folks that we've known. Ben remembers them. Some of these ones we're talking about from 30 some years ago. But all these years, Brent and I and Brent, we've been going back, and I'm telling Kim about this, about all these different people, these new Christians, and she hasn't had a chance to meet them yet. I was so glad that she could go and meet them. But Rodica is one of the ones from before, but this is one of the ladies who taught with Kim and Tamara, Vali, there in Bucharest. This is Charicella, Alex's wife. You know why they're hugging here? Kim's first time teaching with a translator, and Charicella's first time translating. But from what I heard from the ladies, it went really, really well. So they're both kind of relieved and happy that the job is complete. But these three ladies taught, and I think a lot of the other ladies, even Moldovan ladies came down, sisters from Moldova came down because they had these lessons for the ladies also that were taught. Again, these are the three teachers. Tamara there, Brent's wife, and Vali. Vali translated for Tamara, and again, Charicella translated for Kim in those studies. The oldest and youngest at the Confidenza. Again, Lucas is 91, and little Theodore was 3 months old. 3 months old. Again, that's Bogdan, who preaches in Bucharest, new son, just 3 months old as we were there. Bogdan did a lesson, again, like these other young men, and again, I think you can see that picture. That's Austin Paramore. Bogdan talked about growing in our faith. We have to grow so that we can do more, was his point. We can serve more if we grow, and it takes effort, it takes study, it takes consistency in that study to learn and grow. But again, Austin is here, Caleb's up in the back, Taylor Leggett is in this picture from back then. This is a picture that Bogdan put up. He says, we were all teenagers here. We were all young 20s here. But he says, the Lord expects us to grow and to be able to not just learn, but then to teach. And so, again, they're understanding and they're preparing more and more to do the work of the Lord there. We stayed at a hotel, and they provided us breakfast with the hotel, and then we got a real good deal on lunch and supper each day of the conference, where the brethren could come and eat. We could eat together there at the dining room. This is a picture after one of the evenings, but some people have gone already. But it was just wonderful. Some of these men had never taught in a class more than 10, 12 people. And this was, we put 65 chairs out, and one night we had to go get extra chairs, there. It was just wonderful to be together from, again, all over Romania, and then from Moldova and from Belgium. Peter came in, and encouraging to everybody. The children were there from, getting to know each other better. These are the Moldovan ladies with Kim and Charicella. Sergey did an excellent lesson from Moldova. Sergey was converted in Moscow. He is a Moldovan, but he went to study. Got 2 doctor's degrees in Moscow. Keenan helped in Russia, in Moscow, and met Sergey and taught Sergey while he was there in the 90s. Well, Sergey graduated, had 2 doctor's degrees, and then said, my family, my countrymen need to hear this gospel. So he had Well, actually, he told me he started the work that his doctor's degrees provided him back in Moldova. But then he said, I don't have time for this. I have to go full time. And he's been preaching full time. There are 4 churches there in Moldova. He was doing work in Ukraine before the war, but he can't go into Ukraine anymore during the war. But just an excellent worker. And again, so many men going to Eastern Europe at that time, and the fruits of that are still being seen as those men are teaching. Buddy, Brent, and I, again, just encouraged to see all of this. Peter and Liviu came in from Belgium. Peter has been preaching there for over 5 years, I think, Brent, he told us. And it was real. He speaks English real well. He speaks Finnish, and he speaks French fluently. That amazes me, those folks over there, how many languages they speak, and I struggle with English. But the preachers all went home Saturday then, and because they had work to do on the Lord's Day, and we worshiped there in Severin before we headed back to Bucharest to fly out the next day. But this is the church building again there in Severin. We changed clothes and got ready for the trip and got a picture before we took off. But Severin also has been like a center where village churches around Severin. This is Padesh. I got to tell you something about Padesh. This is typical. This is a shepherd lady walking the sheep up the street. Yeah, it could be 1800. It could be 1700. But here it is. She's walking up the street with a herd of sheep. Here's a lady walking her cow. Getting grazing the cow, and but she's got a cell phone talking. So that's not 1800, but the other is. Yeah, that's what Romania. You see things from 1800, and you see high tech stuff that I don't understand. But it's just a unique place. I like this one. Brent Lewis, we didn't see this. But Brent Lewis grabbed it off the internet. It's from Romania. It's from Romania. But you go out in the country. I think, Brent, you took this picture. That's Brent Lewis and I with Nutsa and Ioannuts Corlon. This is their orchard and their vegetable garden. It was incredible. When you go out in the country, you've been there, everything slows down. It just slows down, and it's so comfortable. But we went out. We had a one-off day there a couple of years ago, and we went out to their place. A month later, he sent me this picture. Look how beautiful that is. And their garden was in full bloom, and a month later, they had a torrential rain. It wiped things out. But I asked him again, how's it going? Oh, yeah, it's all planted, this year. And it did happen again. Okay, 2 years in a row, they got flooded out. This is Padesh years ago. These children came from the village. It's just so beautiful. This is when Matt Perez was here. And Matt was an intern with us for that year, and he went with Brent and I over to Romania. And I think that really is a great experience for a young intern to see. But this is Matt teaching the children's class at Padesh. Look at this. I love this picture. I had to show you that. They take their shoes off and go on in. But Padesh was up in the hill country, not mountains yet, but higher elevation, colder, cooler. Oh, I love it up there. And it's country folks in a small village. This is the worship area downstairs. The kids were upstairs in the class, and then we had class downstairs. It was a garage, and they added the top part to the garage there in Padesh. But when I teach there, I have to sit down because it's about 6'4". That ceiling's about 6, and I can stand up, but I have to go like that. So we just sit down and teach from there. But again, this church, it's heartbreaking actually. Yoanut's mama here in the center, she just passed away. But that was a thriving church. It was one of the most um, active and growing churches in Romania. All those children in that village. You know what happens? There's no jobs, none. So they go to other countries, they go to big cities elsewhere, and they get jobs, and they're gone. Some of them were Christians, but they have to move away. And with Yoanut's mother passing, she was a core. She was a key to keeping that congregation, united. That has really dwindled there in Padesh. Locke, this is the road out to the village in Locke. You get off a 4-lane highway, and then you're on a dirt road. And the rain comes, and it's real hard to pass there. This is the taxi. If you don't have transportation, this is the taxi that's waiting for you to take you from the highway to the village. But this is the group there in Locke, and Domnul Popescu, Constantine Popescu there in the center with the white hair, and Brent and I on the ends with the white hair. He works there with his wife in the village church there. And then finally, Timișoara. Nelu has been there from the beginning of the work, and he's the one who told us about the revolution. He saw a lot of this, and he took us on the tour there at Revolution Square. His wife Maria, just wonderful. They have 2 sons who are Christians there. They bought a building and a house, and it has apartments. It's kind of like a little compound. It has a gate and a little compound on a corner of a street, corner building. And they own all of that. They meet there. Here's the church building. Nelu's up front there. And it's just a real good situation. And, we saw, when we were there, we haven't been there for years, but we saw Christians from 5 years, Christians from 3 years, Christians from the last 6 months. Nelu's continually teaching, and you can see that. After the morning worship in Timișoara, they go south. There's a village church, Pichu Noi, and that's here. We visited with them on a Sunday afternoon. Again, this is several years ago, way before COVID. And then Perium is the last village church here. Mihai, Horvat. It's a remarkable story about his background, but he came to become a Christian, and now he's been teaching and preaching with Nelu there in the western part of Romania, and he does the work here at Perium, a group that meets in the apartment there in Perium. I'll end with this. Dan and Tammy Peters were there, and they had a remarkable effect, I think, on the work in Romania. They worked there for a year and a half in right around 2000, 2001. And then that little guy on the left, they had 4 sons. That little guy on the left is Sam Peters. He was at FC several years ago, and we talked a lot. He and Josh, my son, were good friends. And Sam told me, he said, my dad and I want to work together. After I graduate from FC, we want to work together somewhere, even if it's overseas, And that planted a thought in my head. And I talked to Dan, his dad, about going back to Romania. And we helped with the partial support of both Sam and Dan. And the church in Severin, while they were there, went through a real difficult spot, and they helped them through. The church in Constanța, the other half of their time, they spent there, and they helped that church grow in Constanța. But they did some excellent work. I'm just thinking about Temple Terrace and how many times in the past for the work in Romania and other places, a lot of other places, that you brethren have been involved in helping with the work there. I got a lot more to tell you, but I got to quit. Brent took this picture when we were coming across, and there's no shepherd there. It's just sheep. 90s, there was no thought about shepherds in Romania, spiritual shepherds. But you know, there's men, I believe now, that are qualified, but they live in different churches. They live in different cities, and they worship at different churches. But I think, you know, there are signs, positive signs, that there will be spiritual shepherds in the near future, hopefully, in Romania. And that the work that has begun will continue. Again, the Lord gives the increase. If the brethren there are willing and they're capable and willing to do the work, the Lord will give the increase. And that has shown through the 30-some years that we've been following that work. And I hope that there'll be more and more opportunities for us in Romania and in other places around the world as we see those opportunities to react to them and help them to do the work that English speakers can't. You just can't do the work the way a native tongue would be able to do the work. But we can help. We can help them and encourage them and provide resources that they need. We're past time probably. There's no class in here, but thank you all for coming. The class is canceled in here. Chad won't be here today. Thank you all for coming, and appreciate all the encouragement.